targeting 1.3 million sales outside of China. Strong demand abroad helping BYD overtake Tesla in 2025 to become the world's largest EV maker. How many of those cars will be sold in Canada alone over the next few years?
That's what I was thinking, obviously, because this is at the crux, really, of this concern between Ottawa and Washington right now. And we've seen what BYD has been doing to Europe. Going in there, massive investment. What BYD has been doing to Europe. It's overtaking Tesla.
Commerce Secretary didn't hold back last week in Davos, Switzerland. It's going to complicate negotiations over USMCA later this year.
USMCA, those negotiations are going to be incredibly challenging, especially when the President of the United States is now calling the Prime Minister.
It's going to complicate negotiations over USMCA later this year. It didn't help last time, did it?
Nope.
See if it helps this time. Up next on the programme, tensions rising across the aisle.
Maybe go to another city and let the people of Minneapolis decide.
If we don't stop this in its tracks, people being killed simply for exercising their First Amendment rights is going to be a regular feature in this country. That should unite Republicans and Democrats in Congress.
That conversation up next with Terry Haynes of Pangea Policy, live from New York City this morning. Good morning. Good morning. This is Bloomberg Surveillance.
Welcome back to the opening trade. Watch Bloomberg Tech. This is the Asia Trade.
This is Wall Street Week. Welcome to Balance of Power.
This is Bloomberg Television.
The Middle East and Africa regions are home to some of the biggest deals and fastest growth in the world. Vibrant resources and high-yield investment opportunities abound. I'm Jumana Versace. Join me on Bloomberg Horizon's Middle East and Africa for the stories, newsmakers, and insights shaping the decisions of traders across this exciting region.
You had heightened levels of volatility.
There's still room to maneuver.
Reduce the opportunities.
It allows you to increase significantly your net income.
Every trading day, only on Bloomberg.
Key investors, top executives, global innovators. Join me for in-depth conversations with the biggest newsmakers on the day's top stories. Insight with Haslinda Amin, only on Bloomberg.
2 days away from a Federal Reserve decision here stateside. Equities into that just about unchanged on the S&P 500, slightly lower to a very, very volatile trading week last week. The Nasdaq 100 down by 0.1%. The Russell down by 0.1% also. Under surveillance this morning, tensions rising across the aisle.
If the mayor and the governor are going to put our ICE officials in harm's way, and there's a chance of losing more, innocent lives or whatever, then maybe go to another city and let the people of Minneapolis decide.
If we don't stop this in its tracks, what you were seeing in Minnesota, people being killed simply for exercising their First Amendment rights, is going to be a regular feature in this country. That should unite Republicans and Democrats in Congress.
So here's the latest this morning. Senate Democrats vowing to oppose a government spending bill unless funding for the Department of Homeland Security is split off. Bloomberg's Tyler Kendall joins us now for more. Good morning, Tyler.
Hey, John, good morning. Well, a senior aide to Democratic leadership tells me that Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer says that he has the votes to potentially block this spending package, which could risk a partial government shutdown this Friday, which is the deadline for the full appropriations process to ultimately play out. If we look at the math here, Republicans need 7 Democrats to get on board with the spending package as it stands. And we've already started to see some of those Democrats that supported Republicans last time around start to peel off when it comes to their support. If we take a step back, the Senate is right now considering 6 spending bills that would fund the government for the rest of the fiscal year. One of those in part funds the Department of Homeland Security, and Democrats now want to see some of that funding stripped out. The issue with that, though, is that any changes to the broader spending package would have to get kicked back down to the House, and they're out of Washington until February 2nd, which means that they would have to come back in early, and we're already starting to see some issues and delays on Capitol Hill related to the weather. There are also big questions here about whether or not this could reverse some key and hard-fought wins for Democrats in the spending package as it stands. They were able to reverse some of the Trump administration's spending cuts to foreign aid, for example. Plus, we have to keep in mind Immigration and Customs Enforcement received a whole lot of funding under the One Big Beautiful Bill. So others are raising concerns that this is actually going to impact other agencies under DHS and not ICE, such as FEMA, as just one key example here. So there's going to be a lot of negotiation as this goes forward, and we'll have to see what ends up happening, John. It is our understanding that Senate Republicans have reached out to Democrats as we're starting to see some growing unease among the GOP when it does come to President Trump's immigration crackdown, but they're really more calling for investigations to happen rather than impacting any of the funding that's currently under consideration on Capitol Hill.
Tyler Kendall down in Washington. Tyler, thank you. To build on some of that, Terry Haynes of Pangea Policy joins us now for more. Terry, I'm going to kick it off by asking for a projection, a forecast, the call. Where are we going to be by the time we get to midterms at year end?
By the time we get to midterms, I think this will be an aspect, an important aspect of things. I think what you end up with today is I think you end up with a continued Republican Senate. The map is just not very good for Democrats. And also, I think anybody that tells you, as I've heard on your air in the past, that the Democrats are projected to pick up this many seats or that many seats, I think is way, way over their skis. You have a situation where there's about 10% of the seats that are open right now. We don't even know who the challengers are in a lot of those seats, and yet people are already projecting Democratic gains or Republican holds. I think what you got is a situation here at the bottom line is where you have a very small Republican majority in the Senate, and whether or not there is a Democratic majority, it's going to be tiny. And a lot of that depends, a lot of a Democrat's pitch depends on how electable their candidates are. If they end up with a lot of Jasmine Crockett-like candidates in the House, their odds go down substantially.
Terry, there was a shocking incident when it comes to the deadly shooting in Minnesota this weekend. How do you see Congress pushing back against some of the rhetoric we saw in the White House over the next 24 hours or even the next week?
Well, I got to say two things. One, both institutional. One directly on Congress. Look, nobody. John Kennedy used to joke. President Kennedy used to joke that his Pulitzer Prize-winning book, Profiles in Courage, was a very short book for a reason, and that book was about congressional bravery. What you got here is, Congress is lazy, and that may sound uncharitable to people who are running around like crazy, dealing with their constituencies and their jobs. But Congress is not doing any of the oversight that it needs to do on ICE or 100 other things, frankly, to make sure that these things run smoothly. Congress has had a huge role here. It has not exercised it at all. Republicans or Democrats. Democrats could have months ago been agitating for hearings, changes, whatnot, and now we are where we always are, which is nobody's done their jobs on oversight. So now we're going to have hair on fire, last minute spending battles. That's irresponsible for the public. The second thing, frankly, that's irresponsible for the public is to have state and local government officials talk as if they're equal partners or that they can stop things that go on in the federal government. You know, not to put too fine a point on it, we had wars over this. This is a federal government policy, good or ill. And what they need to be doing is working a whole lot more constructively than they have been too. You know, there's an awful lot of people here who are contributing to this bad situation, and they all need to have a little more.
All right, everyone, thanks for joining.
Terry, you talked
Welcome to
about
my
Congress,
first
you
stream.
talked about state and local officials. You haven't mentioned the White House, which
Had
some
some
officials in the White
Bloomberg
House
going
are
in the
calling
background,
the individual, the American that was shot, a
Filler
terrorist.
noise, really.
What's your assessment of how they are?
So yeah, new stream set up. We're going to be really looking at some pre-market dynamics. We're going to be seeing, looking at some sort of macro, looking at the macro news, see how the day is shaping up, the day, the week, even months ahead. We're going to be reviewing that. We're going to be demonstrating some of the tools that I have personally developed. We have an indicator suite, we have a market scanner, it's called Cerebro. So I'll be showing off some of the results that have come in for that today, and we'll be looking through them and see if there's any good opportunities. I've already had a scan through them and picked out some of my favorites. So that's really the schedule. How we're going to be approaching this is just open it up, have a bit of casual chat, and then dive right in. So we are live on Kick, X, and YouTube. I'll make sure I go get those links into my bio at some stage. But at the minute, if you go there, you can probably search for me. Just the same name, Splint. It should come up. So I wanted to start today by listening to a quick 15 minutes conversation with Tom Lee. Basically with Tom Lee's prediction on gold, the Mag 7 and the next rotation trade. I assume he's going to be talking about Ethereum during that. So we're going to start off with
as I said, is with me now as we turn back to the markets. He is a CNBC contributor, of course, Fundstrat Global Advisors. So it's good to see you.
Great to see you, Scott.
Towards the end of the stream, we will be doing some...
Is it portend something that's going to
stock
come
analysis,
forward here for us?
If you're in the chat, just let me know what
part
stock
of it
you
is,
want to
of
look
course,
at,
as you know,
and
we're
we
in
will
earnings season,
do some
and
analysis
markets
of it. So
tend to be
this is my
volatile around
indicator suite.
earnings. I'd say that some of the high-profile declines, like Intel, look bad over a one-day period, but Intel was $17 a year ago. So to me, it doesn't surprise me that you could see some of those stocks have done really well get punished a little bit on earnings.
I mean, this is a hard one to say it's representative of anything. I mean, you know, the company's obviously been challenged. They have the government backstop in there, and the stock was up a ton going into the print. As we turn, speaking of the print, the prints that matter next week, the mega caps, which you still love, but not quite as much.
I mean, we still like the Mag 7 and the mega caps because they're great earning stories and they have a lot of visibility.
They
but
are
as you
great
know, our
earning
top
stories,
picks this year
probably
in
will
terms of
continue to do
sector is
well for a
energy
while,
and
as
basic
long
materials.
as
But
the
as far as
keep
earning
up.
stories go, I think next week's critical because you got most of the Mag
Amazon
7
probably
reporting.
Tom, you're
favorite
crushing
pickup
that
a
so
lot,
far with that
just
call,
for
energy
AWS
and materials
web
are the two
services,
top
it's an absolute
sectors.
beast.
Why were you leaning that direction as the year began?
But they've all got good.
You know, we were betting a bit of mean reversion
Tailwinds,
taking
really.
place in 2026. One of the things we identified in our 2026 outlook in early December was that energy and materials underperformed over the last 5 years at a level that in the last 50 years have marked turning points higher. So we were betting that so much of the bad news was baked in that they could have okay fundamental years, but the stocks could do really well.
I feel like you were on the right path as it pertains to small caps and the Russell just a little early.
Yeah.
I mean, remember, let's remind people, last year you told me up here that we were going to have a 50% gain in the Russell.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, we didn't have that, but the Russell is almost outperforming everything else over the past year. And in 1 month, it's up 5%.
That's really
that going to continue?
That's the Russell 2000.
One of the things we talked about a lot about last year was that when small caps turn, it tends to be a multi-year. In fact, it could be up to a 12-year period. So the last turning point for small caps, and on a relative price to sales last year or price to book, they were at the exact same point they were in 2001. That was a launch point for 12 years of relative outperformance. So I think small caps benefit from a Fed turning dovish, possible M&A wave coming, an ISM turning back above 50, and then catching up to where EM, because EM did really well last year, and small caps usually track that. It didn't.
Fed turning dovish, we have a meeting next week, in case you didn't know, and not expected to do anything. So maybe not as dovish as people thought
so when he says
several
dovish,
months ago. And by the way, as we look at prediction markets, as we think about who might be the next Fed chair, BlackRock's Rick Rieder is now the leading contender in prediction markets. There's Kalshi. We, of course, have a partnership with them. 52% leaning towards Rick Rieder. We shall see. Do you care? How much do you think about who the next might be?
I mean, it's important because it reflects the market.
To refinance.
Market needs to respect who the new Fed chair is. Rick Rieder is somebody that markets really do respect. So, as you know, the Fed has to communicate not only with the White House, but also with the bond market. And I think Rick Rieder's experience in the markets world makes him very credible.
But you're not expecting anything next week, right?
I'm not, but I'm also expecting the Fed to reiterate that they are focused on no longer fighting inflation, but looking at the job market. That's a Fed put on the economy. To me, that's a dovish tilt. And as long as they're not fighting inflation, to me, that's a dovish Fed.
And that's why you think the equal weight S&P is up 4% so far this year compared to the S&P, which is up 1%, and the NASDAQ, which is only up 1.5%?
Yeah, I think so, because as you know, not only is the Fed no longer is trying to establish inflation credibility, which is hawkish, QT has ended, which to me is the same as a version of QE starting. So we are facing a dovish Fed. Even if there aren't cuts, it's still a Fed that wants the economy to do well.
I'm not sure everybody sees every appearance that you have, and people generally think you skew bullish, which you obviously do. That said, you're still looking for what you've said could be a bear market
has been
in the middle of the year. You want to explain one more time why, even in the midst of this bullishness we hear from you, you still think stocks could have a bit of a rocky road at some point?
Yeah, I think 2026 has the same contours as last year. So in 2026, I think there's a good fundamental earnings story. Earnings growth accelerating.
So he says contours, he says.
But we have two transitions to deal with. One is the Fed, a new Fed. The market always tests a new Fed. So for confirmation, let's say that starts in March, a new Fed
I think 2026
happens, and then the market tests it. That's one source of drawdown. The second is, of course, policy. The White House is much more deliberate this year in picking winners and losers, and there's some uncertainty around the tariffs. Last year, that was enough to drive a 20% decline in the S&P. So I think the combination of policy uncertainty along with Fed could create a drawdown that feels like a bear market, but that's from higher levels as well.
Did it make you nervous, the events of earlier this week, speaking of policy uncertainty? You just don't
also, I
really
need to order
know
a microphone,
what's coming
can't hear me too well,
anywhere,
because I have
for that matter, social media or policy by post or what have you. What did you learn, if anything, about Tuesday's events and then how the market acted subsequently?
Well, I think it's a prelude to what a bigger drawdown looks like, because just a social media post about Denmark caused a 2% decline in the S&P and a spike in the VIX. And that was, of course, quickly diffused, but imagine a scenario where there's a series of policy headlines that markets get anxious about. It could easily lead to a larger drawdown.
Some expect more volatility. Let's find out what others think as well. Let's bring in Keith Lerner. He is of Truist Wealth and a CNBC contributor, Malcolm Etheridge of Capital Area Planning. Guys, good to have you. What about that, Malcolm? More volatility ahead after this turbulent week?
My wife said, if you win, we'll fly to Asia. If I win, we'll fly to Paris. I bet you won't get toned with just Tai Chi.
Yeah, I think we're certainly in for some volatility, not only through the entire year, but possibly this quarter. I don't think that Greenland is necessarily a settled case. I don't think that all of the president's agenda that he's going to want to get enacted before the midterms happen. I don't think we've heard the last of it, and Tom makes a great point about years where a new Fed chair comes in and what the market's reaction is to that immediately following. So I think that there's definitely a ton of volatility coming, but more specifically next week, I think sets the stage for some of that volatility. If any of the four Mag 7 companies that we're scheduled to hear from, Microsoft, Apple, Tesla, and I'm blanking on the fourth one, sorry, but that's 15% of the S&P 500's Apple. Thank you. I don't know how I could forget them. But that's 15% of the S&P 500's weighting, and that is very important because it's going to determine whether the rotation away from tech continues or if we hear guidance from those four companies that backs up what we heard from TSMC a little bit ago, that basically bookings are sold out through the entire year, and the money that these companies have been spending is not going to slow down anytime soon. That is very helpful for materials, construction, utilities, those kinds of names. And so I think it helps to keep the party going within tech. Or if we do hear some weakness in that guidance, maybe it starts to show that more of a rotation into IWM, the small caps, things like that Tom's getting excited about.
Isn't it interesting that you forgot to mention Apple? The stock's poised for 8 straight down weeks. A lot of investors have forgot about it lately because it hasn't given them, Malcolm, much reason to think about it.
So here we're talking about Apple. Apple are just, they're so late to the party.
To some of the other names.
They're sitting back, you know, kind of resting on their laurels a bit here with just having good products, and hopefully whenever a lot of the innovation's done in AI, they're hoping to just integrate it into a lot of the products.
Into the iPhone. So I have the iPhone 16, the 17. We're also told that Apple Intelligence was supposed to be the thing.
But it does damage them because they don't, you know, they're not able to put a roadmap out there or convince shareholders that they're on the right track.
The device, and now they're focused on partnering with names like Google and others to help bring that along. And that's
so they have to rely on partnerships to try and get in on the AI trade, really.
What's at stake, do you think, next week? I mean, this happens at an interesting time where these stocks, for a change, are not leading going into their prints in many respects.
Yeah, great to be with you and to join the discussion. So, I mean, I agree with some of the points were brought up. I mean, so far we've had this really consensus rotation into everything but tech. Tech's down for the year. But, you know, as I think about this, Scott, I think, and I zoom out a little bit, the technology sector was up more than 70% off the lows. And I think the last 2 or 3 months has been a consolidation. I was just looking this morning. I found it interesting that the tech sector is now trading at a premium of just 16% relative to the S&P. That's the lowest since 2021, and it's well off the premium of about 36 or 37% that we saw just a few months ago. So we are still positive on tech. It is a critical week. With sentiment now more subdued, expectations are lower. So what we want to see is that these names clear this lowered bar as we go into, you know, a really jam-packed week of tech earnings.
Would you be overweight the group, or would you now lean more heavily towards the rest of the market?
You know, so what we've done, we're still right now.
So this is quite a large earnings week. I'll just see if I can pull up something to see who's doing earnings this week.
Sector, the energy sector, and materials. And our philosophy today is we still like these other areas long term, but it doesn't have to be either or. We still like them. They've been out of favor, but we still think as this market broadens and we have an uptick in the economy, that these other areas should be able to participate. And it's going to be hard to catch all these rotations back and forth, right? So why not have some of both? And that's where we stand today.
Tom, I mean, we're going to be reminded of something next week. Either reminded why we lean so heavily into these names, or reminded why we've started to move in other directions in the market.
Yeah. I mean, and it could be a mixed bag that I think you might have some tech names do really well because they're surprising and they're reiterating guidance, and maybe there's a couple stumbles here and there, but to me it's still, as a group, linked to the AI trade, and I think it's, you know, still a central driver of not only U.S. but global GDP.
This sucks a lot of oxygen out of the room, guys. I'm aware of that, but let's move to some other areas of the market that I want to get your takes on. Malcolm, gold, it's just about at 5,000. Silver's at 100. I mean, these are record levels for both. How do you feel about, you know, clients getting exposure there if they don't already have? Are you a believer that the trend just continues to move higher?
I do. I think that we go from 5,000 and then we start talking about when do we see 6,000, because
everybody is so bullish on gold and silver at the minute. It's mad.
And it's also not going into the 10-year Treasury the way we historically would expect
look
it
at
to
silver,
do, with yields continuing to rise. And so I think that gold more than likely
How can you buy
continues
that?
to be the safety trade globally
If you're not,
for
if you weren't
investors who are either
in,
selling away from America or
you
US
know, anywhere
investors
between
who are also thinking maybe
65
I ought to be looking
and
somewhere
80, it's
outside of the
very
S&P
hard to get
500.
involved in at this late stage.
Keith, what is this about, this move towards 5,000
I
and
was
perhaps
listening to
beyond,
some
as Malcolm suggested, could go?
economists, some analysts, they
Yeah,
think it's
I
going to pull
it's
back
a
into that
combination
sort of
things. I think today we're seeing the dollar
80
a little bit
and around the
weak.
80 mark.
Central banks are buying
How far it
some
runs
diversification
before then, I
outside of
have
the
no
US.
idea. You know,
We've been
anybody's
bullish on
guess.
gold all last year, and we still are this
But
year.
it's been an
I will
absolute
note,
ripper.
at least on a short-term basis, I do think
I am
these
quite heavily
trades are
positioned at the
getting a
minute.
little
Well,
bit
I'm
stretched.
positioned
And,
in
with
rare earths.
commodities, momentum often begets
And I'll talk
momentum.
about it
So
in a little
you don't
while.
wanna
I'm
try to
planning to
call
get
it top,
more
but we
involved in
looked
them,
at
so I
silver
have
this
identified a
last
few
week,
names
and, the run that we've seen on a 6-month
I'll be
basis
jumping
is the
into
most we've seen since the
today
Hunt
when
brothers
the
in
market opens.
79 and 80.
I have
We've
already
seen about 5 other
bought into
circumstances
80
where
Mile
this down
PLC.
stretch,
80
and
Mile,
sometimes
they
it
are
does continue to move forward.
currently on the London
You know,
Stock
next few
Exchange. They
months,
do
but
have
when
an
we look at
OTC
12
ticker.
to 18 months, the risk reward has been less favorable. Now, obviously, the dynamics that's causing that may be a little bit different, but at this point, we're telling
but they
our
are on the
clients we still
OTC 80
we
Mile.
would prefer gold
They
from a
have
portfolio
sites in
diversification
Greenland,
standpoint,
and they're due to
and
make a
we don't think
merger
the risk
soon,
reward
and
is
they're going to be
that
listed on the
compelling here for
Nasdaq under
silver, so we'd be
merger.
patient for a
It's going to be
pullback,
called the
even realizing
Greenland
that may come
Energy.
from a higher level.
Tom, gold,
So I
I'll
have
tell you
quite a
what,
large allocation into
looks
them
a
at
heck
the
of a
minute.
lot better right now than the alleged digital gold.
I think it's going to be good. I
Bitcoin.
think it could be a
What's going on there?
multi-bagger.
Risk on, it doesn't really do anything now. Risk off, it doesn't do anything either. What's it correlated to, if anything?
I think crypto has been suffering from deleveraging. You know, in October 10th, there was that one-time price shock that was the biggest deleveraging of crypto in history. And then this week, crypto was doing well until the Greenland announcement, which triggered the move in JGB yields and a deleveraging in crypto. So I think crypto, unfortunately, is sort of would track gold, but you have to subtract deleveraging, and I think that's really what's been hurting crypto.
I mean, people these calls it, oh, it's the the new reserve currency. Break out the gong on that. That it's the new gold. Break out the gong on that. I mean, have you rethought where you thought that this could go over a period of time? Because your targets on it were so unbelievably lofty, and now I question as to whether they could ever be reached.
Yeah, well,
I also thought
I think
Bitcoin's,
Davos was pretty eye-opening.
Supposed to hit 200K by the end of this month.
Everything being tokenized
and he actually called it. He
onto
actually
a common blockchain.
originally thought it was supposed to be the end of
David
December.
Sachs talks about how
So he's
once
very
the
late
Clarity
on
Act
that. I think it's
passed,
just
digital assets
due to the
and
Clarity Act getting
basically
pushed
the
back
architecture
further and
of Wall
further.
Street are going to merge.
Has delayed him.
I think crypto is still really relevant as a settlement layer, but it is more a story of smart blockchains, which is more of an Ethereum story over Bitcoin. And as you know, Bitcoin maybe is getting dinged because there's some concerns about quantum being able to steal or capture a third of the Bitcoin legacy wallets. I don't think Bitcoin's story is broken. I think it is waiting for clarity, but institutional adoption's growing. So I still don't think $200,000 Bitcoin is that crazy. It is just a doubling in price. And think about where gold was and how silver's moved.
Hopefully,
historically,
when
there's
that's
big
going to happen.
parabolic
His
moves in
predictions
crypto
are crazy.
follow parabolic moves in precious metals. So I don't think that this is a broken story unless it doesn't happen in the next couple of years.
Okay. Don't sound as though your conviction is as resolute.
Well, it's
perhaps.
those gongs, Scott, the gongs.
I mean, it's the truth,
They're
though.
still ringing in my ear.
Well,
yeah.
You're too young for the Gong Show. You should go back and check it out. We'll see. Tom, thanks. That's
Thank
Tom Lee. Malcolm, thank you. Keith, you as well.
That's our boy Tom Lee from Fundstrat. Yeah.
This point in the winter, we've already seen the
Ken's just talking about what he said a lot. He thinks Mag 7 will do well, but there will be some sort of a rotation into the IWM, which is the small caps. Still thinks he's still quite heavy. He's obviously still bullish in crypto, Ethereum, really to do with smart contracts and the sort of building applications on the Ethereum network. Probably will do well. I don't know, but I think crypto is going to continue to suffer until the Clarity Act gets over the line. Really, seems to be what's happening.
their position right before this whole front was they were
Anyway,
short 2 9
so
contracts. For every one contract, they were long.
at this point I really want to talk a bit more about
So you have large speculators
who I am, what I do. So I am a former software engineer. I've worked for some of the largest, some large companies in the likes of Intel. Worked for Deloitte as a technical consultant. Intel, I was an engineer. And I've always been enthusiastic about stocks and investing and trading. So I really want to get more. I want to be more involved in that, but I still wanted to bring a lot of the technical experience that I had and apply it in a way that I could start benefiting a lot of people, including myself. So that's over the last 6 months. Really, I've been building this tool suite, a bit of a product tool suite. So the biggest part of that development has been Cerebro. Cerebro is my market scanner. It's about, you're talking maybe 2,500 lines of pure Python code. A lot of work, and I would say now it's at a really good professional level. I would stand over it at this stage and say it's the current version of it. It's professional grade. So that runs every day. Before the market opens, it actually finished about an hour ago. And the results of that are sent through to our Discord, Purdy Financial's Discord. We have WAP here. If you go to the WAP link, it's all free. Everything I built at the moment is completely free. You can come in, you can try it out. I take feedback from users, members of the community. They tell me what they would like to see added to it, such as, for example, one guy said it's really important for him to be able to customize the sort of look and feel of it. So here he can come in now and he can change the various aspects of it, such as the colors of the ribbon, and he can turn on and disable, enable certain elements of it. So that's what I've been doing. The market scanner runs in the morning. In the Discord, we have a channel, and it puts in all of the daily setups that it's found, and this is what you're seeing here. This is the Cerebro bull list. So I've already gone in. You just have to go in. It's an Excel file. You just grab all the tickers, and then you just come in here. You clear your list, and then bring in the new list. So top result is found from this morning is NMG. So Novea, Monday, Graphite. So these guys, again, they're non-energy minerals, metals play in graphite. So really what Cerebro tries to find, it's stocks that have been in a certain period of consolidation. So we're looking at that box breakout scenario, where it's starting to move to the kind of the top of the box with a certain amount of momentum, and there's enough velocity there that we could break out in either an uptrend or a downtrend. We search for both bullish and bearish opportunities. So that's really what I was trying to find. So here we've got NMG. Found this morning. We did pick up on this one a couple of times last week, and I think it just looks like a really good play. For a quick 2x, really, I think this can really jump up back to the highs of 6. So I think this could be a wee 2x opportunity. You can see this. It's had this consolidation for a while. It's tests, test support, touch resistance, 1, 2, 3 times, and now it's really getting ready for that breakout. So I would really see that going something like that. By maybe could be much quicker than that. There's just such a tailwind at the minute behind rare earths. Yeah, there's also a few more here. The likes of Seven. There's one of the guys in our community was talking about this one. He really liked it, and this is a Seven Hills Realty Trust. They're to do with real estate investments. what's particularly interesting about this one, they're to do with like mortgage loans for commercial real estate. So it's like bridging loans for commercial, and you hear that so much lately. It's all about, you've got all these commercial properties that are coming to the end of their term, they're maybe still sitting vacant or whatever. Could be a great little play here. I don't think we're quite, the market's quite at the real estate thing just yet. I don't think that sector's just really hitting its, I don't think it's just that hot at the moment, but it's definitely heating up. So that's again one to watch. Then we just have a few more in here. There's ES. This is one I've been tracking for a while. Has ran quite hard. Electric utilities speaks for itself really. Like if they're in any way involved in infrastructure or data centers or whatever, distribution of natural gas and electricity. You can see natural gas lately as a commodity. It's soaring as well. Could be a great play. So that's really Cerebro as a bit of an overview of how that works. So yeah, again, that's within the Discord every day before market opens. We're all notified on all of these A+ setups. There's Arvin. Arvin is a ARVN. Arvinas is a biotech company. I mean, you could just look at any of these, and it's been raised to a buy from neutral by Citigroup, so it's not a $15, price target, which really explains why Cerebro has picked up on it. There's been, there's a narrative there, which was found in the volume. It was really to do with the amount of people buying it. So yeah, that's really that. Again, we talked about silver earlier. Silver, gold, on an absolute tear. Rare earths in general are just really looking like the hottest sectors right now. Everything else is just kind of red. Tech's a little bit whatever. It's not quite moving, but rare earths are just kicking it. I think data centers like Bitfarms, Cipher, CleanSpark, even DGXX, DigiPower will see a lot more growth in the near future. I think we're still at that early stages of an S curve where I think data centers haven't really run like they're expected to just yet. I think that's still happening. That's common in my opinion. So I have some allocation towards Cipher, CleanSpark, Bitfarms. Bitfarms is probably my largest holding as far as data centers go. It's been a bit disappointing of late, and that's really to do with the strategy they've got. They're not committing too early to any deals. They're trying to build the best infrastructure possible as for the new NVIDIA chip, the Rubin, which I get. Like, I understand what he's doing. He wants to maximize the potential there. But hopefully hopefully he gets something moving soon. I think the delays in some of his larger sites, I think it's like Panther Creek, but I was reading earlier they've got like Moses Lake, and it's ready for approval soon. It's pretty close. They've also got a Washington site that might be close to being signed in some way. So I'm kind of hanging in there for now, but it's been a bit of a long haul, longer than I like. Big Bear, I love Big Bear. I think some of the acquisitions they've done lately are incredible. You had like Sage, massive for all like how do you say, like Sage is like for governmental contracts. It's all like governmental management of contracts and companies, so that they acquired Sage. Lately they've picked up on Cargo Seer. Cargo Seer, from what I gathered quickly, is an AI-powered inspection and trade risk management specialist. Fits in perfectly with their moat, really, of being installed in every airport, naval facility, boats arriving. Like, it's just, they're really monitoring that trade, make sure it's done. There's nothing slipping through. So Big Bear, I think you can see here, kind of graphed it quickly. It's coming in a bit of a really tight channel here. This is a descending wedge with an upside breakout, and I think it's very close. I think it's just waiting for that news of a contract. I remember listening to some of the officers, the CEO, in the last earnings. They were talking about they were talking about the loss of the army contract, and they were pretty quick to just brush that off and say that, you know, we have some big contracts coming next year through the big beautiful bill. So I think that's very close. That's cooking. ABAT, I have an allocation in, great potential as well. I think lithium ionized batteries, recycling. I think they're probably involved in mining somewhere as well. It's a recycling plant, whatever. Wouldn't be surprised to see, you know, the US coming in with a stake there too. Redwar's looking really good. I talk a lot about Redwar. I think it's going to be a big player in the Golden Dome. It's just an incredibly bullish graph. Really see this hitting 1888, 20 near term. I've been holding since around 7. I have quite a lot of leaps, and I'm probably going to trim around here. Probably trim that back, leave a few runners, and then hopefully catch any sort of pullback to about the 13 region, and then I'll just load up heavy. So that's how I'm playing Redwar. SES as well. I've put a couple of X posts up lately on SES. Great little AI engineering battery firm. I noticed recently that they're increasing their footprint in South Korea for production, I believe. So again, something's cooking. So yeah, that's kind of my biggest holdings at the moment. I do plan on adding a few rare earth plays today. That I'll just touch on quickly. First one is TMRC. I think it's a OTC. I think it's going to benefit a lot from the big drive we're seeing in USAR, which is actually USAR is actually pulling back a good bit here in pre-market. It was up 40% earlier. It's pulled back a bit. Could be a nice entry now. I don't know. Before the market opens, I expect that to go back up to where it was. I think it's probably going to touch 40 today. It was there earlier in pre-market. It's probably going to go back. But TMRC are going to benefit off the back of this. They have some co-share agreement. I think TMRC has like 18 to 20% or something of some shared mine or whatever. I don't know. I'd have to look into it again. But yeah, when I looked at it earlier, it made sense. I'm ready to rock and roll on TMRC. Another one I really like. This is one I told my Discord members about today. It's LOT. This is Lotus Resources Limited. Lotus Resources Limited have one of the largest uranium sites locked down in Malawi. So they own like 80% of it. The Malawi government has like 20. Some sort of ratio like that. You can fact check me if you want, I don't care. But that's what Lotus do. Lotus are on the OTC, LTSRD. So again, look at this graph. Everything just rare earths getting ready to, if it hasn't already ripped, it's setting up to do so. However, I'm having troubles. I use Interactive Brokers. I can't find this one as on the OTC market for whatever reason. So I do have access to the Australian market, so I'm just going to pick it up there because they are an Australian miner. Sort of on that, I think Australian miners are going to see a rush, you know, similar to what they had in the previous gold rush. There's just going to be so much potential there. I spent some time. I lived in Australia. I know what the mining culture is like out there. They're big into it. They have the biggest machines. They've just such a landmass, and a lot of these Australian companies have a footprint in various areas. You got Brazil, you got Africa. You know, they're just spread out. So, Lotus is one that I'm looking at. I'll probably have to make an entry when the Australian market opens. That's later on tonight. So I've got some capital ready to go there. Just as a long-term play, I'm just going to, you know, they're at production now. I was talking a bit about it in our Discord, that they're ramping up for Q1 now to, you know, start this uranium production. Uranium as an actual commodity is gonna, yeah, I mean, it's just following the same path as gold and silver. Could, you know, sky's the limits with all these commodities at the minute, really. you know, how far do they go? The only thing that's going to take the steam out of them, I think, is if there's a big rotation into the small caps, the IWM and crypto. That's going to take the steam out of it, but it's going to be temporary. It's just going to be a minor retracement and pullback. Again, the silver will probably come back, touch that 80 level. You know, you could graph it and see uranium, and well, copper hasn't ran as much, but if you're thinking about FOMOing into any of these, I'm personally holding back on some of the major runners, and I haven't touched it yet. I'm really waiting for that retracement before I get involved in it.
Everything you need to know as markets open across Europe.
Let's talk about significant risk transfers to find space in their balance sheet.
Hedging some of that risk.
You could look at it the other way. Obviously, this stuff is risk-weighted.
I would much rather be long than be short.
We're in a kind of
LAC's looking very good. I did get in on LAC about a week ago. Cerebro picked up on it.
Every trading day only on
LAC, this big spike you've seen in LAC previously, that was from the US government taking a stake. I think it's like a 5%, anywhere from a 5 to 10% stake in LAC. LAC, you know, own or, you know, have access to, I think it's the largest lithium site in the US. I believe it's in the US. Thacker Pass, wherever that is, Nevada, northern Nevada. It's headquartered in Vancouver, Canada, but they're in Nevada. I got in on this on a nice entry. I think I was in around 550, something like that, maybe less. Tempted to load up more. I think it's going to run. We're moving into that age of robotics, drones, robots, Optimus. You're talking eVTOLs, or all just everything's just running on batteries now. Even storage, like you need so much lithium for storage. And going back to what I was talking about with NMG, even graphite has a big role to play in battery storage. It's one of the big use cases of graphite. That's why NMG's, you know, it's up 4%. It's probably gonna. That's why I think that's the thesis behind why I think it's going to do that 2x.
If it matters to your life, we're covering it. I'm Katie Greifeld.
And I'm Romain Bostic. And
Copper's looking strong as well. I think that's going to hit a supply shock too. 2028, I believe, or 2027 is going to be a real supply shock in copper.
Has the report under surveillance with crucial data and expert analysis at terminal speed. Nobody covers jobs day like Bloomberg.
Anyway, I'm not planning to do too long of a stream today. This is just really me doing my first one, trying it out. I'll probably watch it back, just see how the quality was, see if it was making sense or just talking like a complete twat. And then first one, checking it out. There's not really too much more I want to talk about. I just really wanted to come in and show off my indicators a bit. So again, we have Galaxy, Astral, and Moby. Moby is a whale watching script, which basically tries to track that big institutional flow. If you've got a big blue bar, it just means the bulls are in control. That purple bar just means the bears are there. When you get an orange line, so orange here, this orange, it means that there's institutional buy-in, but it's selling, and they're trying to push it down into support. Whenever it's the lime color, like a lime yellow, it means the bulls are in control and they're trying to push it up towards the resistance. We also have the Galaxy, which is the main one. This is really the main driver. You get these Nova crosses, you can call them diamonds, you can call them stars. Some people in the community say they look like targets. Really, that pings off whenever all the conditions are met. You've got the velocity, you've got the momentum, and you've got that break and structure that we're looking for. That's when that fires off, and that's really your entry-exit signal. It works across all time frames. And then we have Astral up at the top. Astral is like your, it's like an oscillator. It's like a trend-based oscillator. It looks to try and capture the trend and then keep you in it as long as it's valid. So here you can see that was always on an uptrend about here, and then we had a bit of a chop. You know, I would expect that to print another blue diamond soon, because this thing's going to go on a trend upwards. So yeah, that's the really what I want to talk about. So we've got an indicator suite. We have the market scanner Cerebro. Cerebro, again, runs every morning. It's daily, Monday to Friday. You get that full report every morning of all of the A+ stocks. The stock setups that it's found for the day. So you've got even like NEE, next to your energy. You know, self-explanatory, some of the stocks it's finding. And then also within the community, we have a great bunch of people in there. We're up now to close to 100 members, some real gangsters who, we're always, we're all enthusiastic. We're all enthusiastic about the markets. We're chatting about stocks. We're challenging each other's thesis and why it's a good opportunity. We share graphs, setups, everything apart from wives is what we're sharing. And we have a whale watching report in there as well. So at the end of every day, you have so on every trading day, if there's ever an insider of a company that makes a purchase of shares within that company, they have to disclose that to the SEC. So at the end of every day, we get a report of every one of those. So who was buying and selling. I can maybe show you our Discord, but I have to just change the screen capture. Give me 2 seconds. So I can't show you the Discord here. So this is the Discord here, to give you a bit of a look at it. And you got the welcome channel, yada yada yada, welcome, introduction, stock trading. We do have a investor center at the bottom. If you're interested, if you don't really know much about stocks and you want to get involved in it, we have a quick stock trading 101. Which broker to use, what's your motivation, what's your psychology, what are you hoping to get out of it, some of the core concepts, types of research you can do, what does everything mean, what's a PE ratio, what's an EPS, which broker to use, what way to set up your account, everything like that. And then in here's community, so this is kind of a lot of the general chat. This is where everybody's just kind of in chatting away, stock chat, some threads, NMG, ABAT, LAC, that I talked about in the stream already. There are 3 stocks I think have a lot of potential. We have some charts in here. Cerebro here, we have a Cerebro chat. People talk about the market scanner results daily. And Cerebro here, this is where it spits it out. So every day we get the report. We also have the indicator suite. Quick start guide here. You can read into what is each one of what does each one of the indicators do in more depth. How do they complement each other? How do you use them to their full potential in what you're trying to do? So that's really that's the Discord. 2 seconds.
What do the investors that you speak to every single day call it? It's not circular financing get. Doesn't it just look and smell like circular financing?
Yeah, so that's the stream for today. I was going to do some stock analysis. If anybody had any particular stocks they wanted me to look at, just throw it in the chat. If not, I will be I'm going to wrap things up. And then I'll be inside at the end of every stream. I'm going to stream Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. They're going to be my streaming days. Just to really say what my watch list is like, what stocks I'm looking at, how things are going. Yeah, I'm going to take it from there. But in between that, I'm always available in our Discord. Again, if you go to my X profile, I'll also put a link on my YouTube, and I'm also on Kick, but I don't know, Kick doesn't seem to be too active. But I'm going to make sure that all of those have a link to the WAP, so again, go there, free access to Discord, put your TradingView username in, you get access to all the scripts. So once you get access, it's just literally up here, indicators, invite, you'll see them here, you can just add them in any one of your charts, and they work in every chart. It doesn't matter, any symbol. Forex if you want, crypto, doesn't matter. I think that's it. So yeah, this is my first ever stream. Thanks for joining. Yeah, I'll see you later.
It's not just the latest generation of NVIDIA accelerators. I should have got this terminal chart ready, I apologize, but if you look at older generations, we have this on the terminal Hopper, for example. Those obsolete older generations are seeing their rental prices go up a lot at the moment. Utilization